Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Passive Income Revolution podcast. So today we're going to chat about a 90% no-touch leasing procedure. And I know some of you might feel this is overkill in regards to what is going on with the COVID-19 virus, but I want you to understand that this isn't just about that. There are also elements in here that can make us more efficient as rental owners, and it can also make us appear more accommodating to our prospective tenants. So please stay tuned because either way, you will learn some valuable information today. One of the things my company did in reaction to this COVID situation was try and figure out ways that we could still continue our showings and be safe. And not only our showings, but our entire leasing procedure, because let's be honest, when we think about renting out a unit, there's a lot of human-to-human contact that comes into that. But now that we're kind of on the other side of the COVID virus to a certain extent, we are realizing that a lot of the changes we made, we're going to keep because they've made us more efficient. And that was when I decided that this was podcast-worthy material, because it's not necessarily just about the virus, but it's also about ways to make your operations more efficient for you. So this 90% no-touch leasing policy, it did mostly come out of the COVID situation, but we have decided to keep the elements using technology that have made us more efficient and that have actually made some of our prospective tenants say to us, wow, no one's ever offered to do it this way. It was so much easier for us than it's ever been to rent an apartment. Now, the no-touch leasing procedure, it does start with the showing. And this is where you see some of the first benefits as well to this procedure, even if you're trying to make yourself more efficient. If we think about how many times we go to our properties and we do a showing, and we do 3 or 4 or 5 showings only to have every single person say, oh, well, the layout won't work for me because I don't want the kitchen right next to the living room, or I don't want the laundry right next to the living room. Or even sometimes they'll say, well, my sectional couch I know won't fit in here. And they couldn't get an idea of any of this from the pictures. So one thing that we can do, and this is the first step in the no-touch leasing procedure, is to do virtual showings of our properties for first time look at them. So one thing you can do is take your phone. Everyone has mostly a good camera now on their phones. They're all up to I think on most phones they're 10 megapixel. Take your phone and go into your unit and record what is a good video that shows your unit. Now, there's a couple things that you'll want to be sure and do when you're getting ready to film. Number 1 is make sure all your lights are on in the unit before you go through and you film. 2, make sure all the doors are already open that you can open so that you're not clumsily trying to open doors as you're shooting your video. The other thing is if your rental is near anything that might create noise at certain times of the day, so railroad tracks or industrial area where factories leave a lot or trucks leave factories a lot at 3 p.m., try and avoid shooting at those times. But then also as you're filming, this is going to sound strange, but be aware of how your breathing is. Are you breathing very heavily? Because your microphone on your phone is going to pick that up. And that's going to be really creepy when you play it back. And if you're playing it back in your virtual showing and you don't edit out the sound, it's going to be really, really weird. So just remember those few things in mind. Now, as you're starting to shoot your video, make sure you remember that you are shooting a video rather than looking with your eyes. Our eyes work a lot faster than our cameras do. So we may be able to dart from one end of the room to the other and process everything in a few seconds. Your camera is not going to be the same way, and neither is the person viewing this over the video. So you want to be sure and pan slowly. And as much as you can, get as close to a 360 view of that room as you can. Ideally, aim for something around 315 degrees, 320 degrees, pretty close to a full turn of the room, but don't feel like you have to stand in the center and sort of turn like a ballerina on a jewelry box. You just want to give them the most idea of that room as you possibly can. Then the other thing is when you're moving, be sure you are moving slow as well. Just don't dart into the next room. Now, one thing you can do is if you have a longer transition going from room to room, you can pause your video without stopping that specific recorder. So just pause it and then unpause it when you get into the room you want to start filming again. In areas like kitchens, you want to be sure and have at least one or two of the kitchen cabinets open so that they can kind of see inside what the shelving is like, how it's set up. I know it sounds strange, but every showing I've been on, they have opened up the kitchen cabinets, which tells me that there's something that people think about in regards to kitchen cabinets that I personally don't see because I've actually never done that. So have one or two kitchen cabinets open. And also try and have the refrigerator open as well, because that is also something that people always open. And it's not just to be sure that it's clean, it's to just kind of see the layout of the refrigerator and see if they like it. Now, once you're done with the first story of your unit, if you have a second story, the next important thing is to actually pause the video before you start going up the stairs. Because here's the thing, nobody needs to see the awkward video that is created from you going up the stairs step by step by step. Because really the best thing that they're getting is a view of the carpet up close. And believe me, that's not something they really want to see. So pause your video, and then once you get to the top, unpause your video and start recording again. Now, ideally, your video is going to be between 7 to 13 minutes, depending on the size of your apartment. So if you are an owner that has like 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, a living room, a large kitchen, then you might be more on the side of 13 minutes. Generally speaking, a video tour where you're not talking is gonna be anywhere between 7 to 13 minutes and not much longer than that. Of course, if you have a studio or even a 1 bedroom, you might find yourself more on the 3 to 5 minute mark, and that's completely fine because again, it's all based on what size of unit you have. Now that you have your video shot, the next thing you're going to do, and this is optional, is you can upload it to a video editing program and either cut it so that you're removing some of like the downtime that maybe you view as not necessary in your film anymore, or you can certainly add music. You can edit out the sound if you'd like to, your breathing or any other sounds that might have occurred during the video filming. But this is completely an optional step. You know, again, we're not going for necessarily like great YouTube creator content here. We're just going for a good basic video that shows the layout of the unit and it gives them the idea of how the amenities are and what amenities exist in the property. That's really the point of these videos. It's a basic introduction. It's not marketing to make it stand out or anything like that. Because by the time they're in this virtual showing that you're going to do, you've already kind of caught their eye. So this really is supposed to give them an idea of the layout and really sort of help them determine if they want to see it in person because they're that serious about the unit. Now, what you're going to do is in your listings, in your ads for your unit, you're going to put in there that your first showings are only done virtually. And you're going to say in there, virtual showings are done on every Saturday at 10 a.m. or every Thursday at 2 p.m. It's best if you have a set time like that so you don't have to keep updating your ad. And then encourage people to DM you or email you to get a link to that video conference. Now, of course, whether you do email or DM depends on the platform. If it's through Facebook Marketplace, then you can just have them DM you. If you're doing something like Trulia or HotPads, then you would probably siphon them through your email based on how those platforms are set up. But you don't necessarily want to have the link to the virtual showing directly in the ad. Number one, there's this element of people of obviously like hijacking video conferencing these days, but also you do want to have a little bit of a one-on-one conversation if possible before you do the virtual showing, just because you may find out that it won't work for them anyway because they want to move in 3 weeks sooner than it's ready or something like that. So I encourage you to have them actually contact you to get the link for the next virtual conference showing. Now, as far as the virtual conference showing goes, you can use any platform you like. You can use Zoom. You can use GoToMeeting. There are many platforms available. Zoom is the one that we use. What's great about Zoom is that you can do a free plan for up to 40 minutes with up to 20 or 25 people in a room. So you get up to 40 minutes for any meeting that has up to 25 people in the room. And you might feel that this is a time constraint, but actually it's going to help you because it's going to limit your appointments where they're not stretching out like to be an hour or an hour and 15. This is going to help you kind of schedule your day out and keep yourself on track, and also put a concrete end to these meetings where people will be encouraged to contact you when it ends. So once you have your video conferencing, you have your listing up, next thing you're going to do is go into your first virtual showing. The best way to run this is that you give people, ample time to get in the room. You're not starting late, but like maybe a minute or two just to be sure everyone's in the room. And then what you'll do is you will share your screen and you will start showing them the video that you recorded. And you will narrate it this time. So you will show them, you will speak to them and say, hey, this is the living room. It's got an awesome bay window here. And as we turn around, you're going to see the entrance to the half bath in the corner. You're going to narrate it as if you're actually doing the showing with them in person. The one thing I do recommend is that you do pause every 1 or 2 rooms to ask if there are any questions about the unit. Keep it to questions about the unit until you get through the rest of the video. Make sure everyone sees the whole apartment, and then you can answer the general questions about whether you accept pets, what the pet policy is, what your leasing procedure is. Leave all that for after you've showed the entire video. Once you have showed the entire video, open it up to general questions. Be sure the general questions that you're answering in chat are ones that are only about the property amenities or about the unit. Don't answer any specific questions in regards to if someone will be approved for the unit or anything in regards to personal confidential information. So if someone's asking, hey, I have a bankruptcy, will I get approved? That should be a conversation that should be directed like DM between the two of you. And there is a direct message function in Zoom as well. But of course you can say, hey, we'll have this conversation via email. So you'll get through this, you'll do all of your virtual showings, you'll possibly do a few email exchanges, but at some point you're going to encourage the person to schedule an in-person showing with you. And you're going to say, hey, you want to schedule an in-person showing? We will still do in-person showings here because nothing will ever substitute the person being in the unit for giving them an idea of how it's going to work for them. So really, we can't get away from this aspect. But one thing we can do, if we are concerned about the transmission of viruses, is we can let them go in the unit and we can stay outside. So we can open it up, have the lights on, have the doors on, and when they get there, tell them, hey, go in, take a look. Let me know what you think. When you come back out, we'll discuss the procedure for applying and let you know a little bit of what our policies are. You can operate it that way because, again, we're not going to get away from in-person leasing showings because there's so many things that people want to see in person. And an apartment or a house is something that 90% of people want to see and sort of like feel before they actually rent it. Now, the rest of this is going to go a little bit similar to a certain extent. Once you have somebody who's seen the unit in person and they're serious, you're going to do the application process. If you're trying to avoid skin-to-skin contact, then what I encourage you to do is for your application process, have everything out on the kitchen counter when you go do the in-person showing. So if you have a full application there or a smaller application form that you use for an online application, have it all ready to go on the kitchen counter. Have pens available if they need them to fill something out. If there's an exchange of money, have them put it on the counter and then you pick it up off the counter. You write a receipt, you put the receipt out on the counter and then have them pick it up. That's the best way to run any sort of application procedure if you're concerned about the skin-to-skin contact. Once we've moved on from that, actually processing the application is going to be exactly the same to what you have right now. So we won't change anything there. The next thing we'll do in our business is we do a holding fee appointment, and this is where they look over a sample lease packet. This we still do in person. So for this, people are coming to our office. They're giving us the holding fee, which is applied to the security deposit. And then they're also looking over a sample lease packet. So this is something we've pre-printed, and it has all the lease documents that could possibly be contained in their lease. So whether they rent a garage or they don't, whether they have a pet or they don't. It's a full lease packet based on every single document that they have, and they have the opportunity to page through it. The one way we're doing this different now is that we're laying the lease packet out on a table, and then our leasing agent or property manager is actually stepping away from the table, and they're going back to do their normal work. And then if there are questions, they kind of answer them with social distancing in mind. If you don't do any sort of holding fee appointment like this, then the next thing you're going to move into is obviously getting your lease signed. And this is something that we have had the most positive feedback with. Now we're getting to the exciting part here, because we've got an applicant that is ready to go. And as rental investors, we love that part, because this next part means they're moving in. So once we have the applicant approved, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to move forward to completing their lease. So you're going to get everything ready. You're going to get the rental agreement done, any attachments or addendums that you have to go with it, get all of that done. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to schedule a Zoom call with that person. And you're going to go over your lease with them as you would maybe in person. So you might be wondering, wait, e-leasing exists. Why don't you just send it out for electronic signature, let it come back, and then it's done? I have to tell you something from experience then. About three and a half years ago, we tried going to e-leasing, where basically we sent out the lease for signature, waited for it to come back, and then everything was done. And this sounds really great because we thought we were making it easier for the prospects or for the new tenants. Like, it's so convenient. You can just sign your lease now when you get home from work in your pajamas. You don't need to worry about trying to come into the office or anything like that. What we didn't really anticipate was how little people read things that they sign, whether it's 1 page, 5 pages, or 10 pages. People just don't read these things. And what was happening is that we would begin to spend more time policing our policies with our tenants than we ever would have spent if we had sit-down lease signings with these tenants. Because the tenants that we were having to police were the ones that had the electronic lease signings. So we quickly changed that back once we realized the pattern, like, no, wait, people aren't reading these things. But when we do it in person, it's really effective because we aren't having to police quite as much. So this is really important. Doing an in-person lease signing, or now a virtual lease signing appointment, can really help control the amount of time that you spend correcting tenants on lease violations. So schedule the 30 minutes that it takes to go through your lease, schedule that Zoom call, and hit the important parts. Now, the important parts aren't just your important rules, but you should also be clarifying, this is your rent, this is when it's due, there's a late fee at 12:01 a.m. on the 6th, this is what your security deposit is, this is any special promo that you have right now. Go over the important things as far as the terms of the lease, but then also go over your rules and make sure they understand those. And this is really, really critical. Now, what's awesome about doing it this way, we have already received feedback, and I'm not even joking. We have received feedback from the 4 people that we have moved in this way just recently. They have been so impressed by the ability to do it that way because it made it so much easier for them. We had a single parent moving in, and he said it was so easy for him because he could just put a video on in the living room for his kids. They're, 7, 9 years old. Didn't have to worry about getting a babysitter. Didn't have to worry about any of that because they were in the living room. he was in his bedroom and he was doing the Zoom call with our property manager. And it made it so much easier for him rather than finding someplace to send his kids or someplace, somebody to come watch his kids, that they weren't in the office with him during the lease signing. They were entertained, they were at home, and everything worked out so well. So you really should consider this because it's a great way to not only keep less contact, but it's also a great way to kind of go above and beyond for your new tenants and be like, hey, I understand the pressures you've got in your life, so let me help by doing a Zoom call with you regarding your lease and going it over with you. Then the next thing you can do is you can send out that lease via email. You can send it out. And then in your little email there, say, hey, use a program like DocHub to sign this for free. DocHub is a program, and this is not sponsored, by the way. DocHub is a program that we've been using for about 2 years now, that we use to send out leases and to get tenants to sign it in. We just recently got a paid plan. But before then, we were just attaching our leases into a file, sending it to the tenant and being, hey, sign this electronically. You can use DocHub. You just need to create an account, but it's totally free. You can sign it there totally for free, download it, send it back to us, and then your portion will be done. So you can use a program like DocHub to accomplish that, and they can do it as well. So even if you don't want to pay for the paid program, you can send it out via email, have them upload it to DocHub, have them sign it, download it, send it back to you. Include those instructions in your email. Or you could pay for the paid program, which at that point, you could then send it directly out through DocHub for e-leasing or for e-signing. In that way, you don't necessarily have to give them instructions or anything because DocHub takes care of all of that for you then. So we've got our lease signed. We've gone over the important parts with them. We've eliminated another portion of this where there's going to be some sort of touch involved. Now, the last part is the keys, the security deposit, and all that fun stuff you might do on the day that they're going to move in. This next part is going to sound pretty similar to when we were doing the applications before in the unit. So we're going to deal with 3 things here: the move-in inspection form, the keys, and then the payments. Now for the move-in inspection form, in some states, you actually have to leave it with the tenant and give them time to fill it out. Here in Wisconsin, we leave it with them and they have 7 days to return it to us. So what we do is we leave that form on the counter already there for them by the time they get to the appointment. And we say, hey, this is your move-in form. You have 7 days, fill it out at your leisure, return it to us. If you don't return it to us, there's that little part in your lease that says you're saying the unit was fantastic and there was no pre-existing damage. Now, if you have the ability in your state to do it immediately with the tenant, then what I recommend you do is you give them the form, have it out on the counter with a clipboard and a pen ready to go. Allow them the time to walk through their unit and fill out that form. While they're filling out that form, step out of the apartment. You have to kind of treat it as almost their home at this point. So you want to be a little bit cognizant of the fact that they might appreciate you stepping out into the hallway and giving them socially distanced space to do what they need to do in there. Now, of course, you won't have exchanged keys or anything at this point, so it's not like you're going to be locked out of the unit or anything without payment. Keep the keys until you got that payment. So let them do the form. When the form is done, they'll bring you back in the unit. They'll lay it out on the counter. You'll probably leave it there for a bit because you're going to do your money exchange and your key exchange. And we're going to run this the same way as the application. So again, it's them putting the payment on the counter, them putting the security deposit money order on the counter. We're writing out the receipt. We're putting that receipt on the counter. They're then picking up their receipt. Same thing with the rent money that they're going to be paying. They put it on the counter. We write out the receipt. The receipt gets placed on the counter. They pick up their receipt from the counter. And then lastly, the same thing with the keys. So there you have it. From start to finish, we have created a 90% no-touch leasing procedure that is also more efficient for us as rental investors. And that's the really great thing about this. Regardless of how you feel about COVID and the transference of germs and viruses, things like that, this podcast has included ways to make you more efficient as a self-managing landlord. Talk about doing virtual Zoom tours for your first showings and groups. Then talk about doing your leasing via Zoom, because let's admit it, when we do an in-person appointment with somebody, we tend to linger longer, we tend to chit-chat, we feel like we have to stay there a little bit longer. But with Zoom, it's sort of like you get in, you get out, because you accomplish what you do and you're gone. You're not sitting there chit-chatting like you might if you were in person. So that's another way we've made ourselves more efficient. I think even sending out the signature electronically makes you more efficient, because then you've got a PDF copy of their signatures. You can even make a PDF copy of your signatures on there, and that way you have a fully executed document on your computer. That way, if your file copy gets lost, if you still print it out or anything like that, you'll have that hard copy. And then it's also really easy to send the tenant a new electronic copy if 3 months down the road they say, oh man, I lost my lease because, my child spilt all this stuff on the counter. She spilled Kool-Aid. And next thing I know, my lease was just destroyed, but I need it for school now. You can just send them an electronic form of their lease really easy because it's on your hard drive. So I hope you learned something from today, either to make yourself more efficient as a self-managing landlord, or to make yourself feel better about how you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis as a landlord in regards to leasing out your units. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.